This is our news, the weekend edition. And on the broadcast tonight, the Prime Minister announces the shift to another phase in reopening the economy. This as the Prime Minister also revealed there were more than 2 permanent residents who were allowed to disembark in the country last week. Plus, airlines and cruises set dates to return to Nassau, and later, chefs team up to feed the less fortunate.
Our news is brought to you by Alive.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Andrew Knowles, and thanks so much for joining us. Topping news tonight. Starting tomorrow, the country begins transitioning into the next phase of reopening the economy. Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis announcing this afternoon that the Bahamas is moving to Phase 1B. This as no new cases of COVID-19 were reported today.
Because of the progress we are making, I am pleased to announce that effective tomorrow, May the 4th, we will move to Phase 1B in the reopening of our economy.
Under Phase 1B, businesses providing goods and services through delivery and curbside pickup only are allowed to open Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Construction on New Providence and Grand Bahama will also be permitted Monday through Friday from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. Home and hardware stores, plant nurseries, and auto parts stores can expand their services to 5-day online delivery and curbside services should they be able to accommodate the restrictions in customer interaction.
This phased reopening is aimed at striking the right balance between permitting some further level of commerce to resume, while still maintaining a vigilant national position, promoting physical distancing, and reinforcing the health and safety precautions necessary to mitigate community spread of COVID-19.
Phase 1B will also allow professional athletes to resume training. Although originally set to reopen in Phase 2, the Prime Minister also announcing the decision to open a few family islands tomorrow as well. They include Ragged Island, Rum Cay, Mayaguana, Inagua, Crooked Island, Acklins, and Long Key.
Border restrictions as it relates to travel of passengers in the family islands remain, except for emergency and other circumstances which must be approved by the Civil Aviation Authority. However, residents of New Providence who are currently in the islands just mentioned will be allowed to return to New Providence.
As for those Bahamians abroad wishing to return home, Dr. Minnis confirmed their re-entry by air travel into either New Providence or Grand Bahama by the weekend. They will, however, have to be tested first. And in cases like Florida, where it's difficult to get the RT-PCR molecular diagnostic test, government will assist.
The government has made arrangements for the return of hundreds of Bahamians who have been stranded in the United States for some time. It is expected that they will begin arriving to New Providence by this weekend. For this group of Bahamians returning from the United States on the commercial aircraft, these individuals will have the option of self-quarantine at home or being quarantined in the facility provided by the government.
The Prime Minister also reiterated a stern warning: break quarantine or violate the quarantine order and face a $25,000 fine or 5 years imprisonment or both. Well, the Prime Minister also revealing more details surrounding the acceptance of American permanent residents into the country last week. This after Health Minister Dr. Dwayne Sands gave permission to the Americans to disembark a flight that was used to drop off 2,500 double swab diagnostic test kits on Wednesday. Dr. Sands has come under heavy fire for the decision, and the Prime Minister admits protocol was breached.
The protocol for allowing Bahamians and legal residents to enter the country at this time was breached last week. I have now been informed that instead of the stated 2 permanent residents who were allowed to disembark and remain in the country, that it was actually 6 permanent residents who are all related. All of these individuals have tested negative for COVID-19 and will remain under a mandatory 14-day quarantine.
The Prime Minister says the Minister of Health will issue a statement on the matter tomorrow. Well, police conducting investigations into a traffic fatality here in the capital after a man died in hospital on Friday. Police say the man fell from the back of a white 2008 Ford truck that was traveling on Cowpen Road east of Spiken Yard Road shortly after 2 p.m. on Tuesday. He sustained serious injuries and was taken to hospital, where he succumbed 3 days later. The driver of the truck is assisting police with investigations. Well, government has made no decision to allow international airlines or cruise ships to enter the Bahamas, according to Aviation Minister Dionisio Diagler. This as some airlines are already setting dates to resume services. Berthany McDermott reports.
As the world continues to adjust to the new normal brought on by the COVID-19 pandemic, airlines and cruise lines are already preparing to resume services. Last week, Delta Airlines announced that it will resume services to Nassau in May. However, Tourism and Aviation Minister Dionisio Diagler said the final decision is up to the competent authority.
All of the airlines and all of the, in that instance, Bahamas Cruises, which is a ferry, are all setting dates by which they are planning to return to this country. That final decision, of course, will be made by the competent authority and assessing the condition of the health issues in the country, and he will make that decision when he feels safe to do it.
Bahamas Paradise Cruise Lines has also announced that sailing will resume on board Grand Celebration on June 13th and on board the Grand Classica on June 10th. These announcements come amid a 30-day extension to the state of emergency, which includes a 24-hour curfew, weekend lockdowns, and the closure of most businesses. It stipulates that all seaports shall be closed to regional and international seafaring and private boating. Additionally, no visitors shall be permitted to enter and disembark for any reason, including transiting through the Bahamas. Transport Minister Renwood Wells said a number of cruise lines have made inquiries on when they can resume sailing to the Bahamas, but noted that nothing has been approved.
They may like to resume in June. Obviously, as the Prime Minister constantly says, we're going to be guided by the medical professionals as to whether or not we're going and when we're going to open the economy.
Meanwhile, the aviation minister stressed that he is hopeful that international flights will resume as soon as possible.
Tourism is the lifeblood of the country. We need it to return as quickly as possible. But we don't want to get ourselves in a situation where we open up and then it all goes horribly wrong. So we need to ensure as best as possible that we are ready and we have the necessary protocols in place to ensure that when it does open, we don't surge up again with COVID cases and then we have to shut back down again, which would all be very unpleasant for everybody.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Berthany McDermott.
Education Minister Jeffrey Lloyd says he doesn't see there being any consideration for graduation ceremonies at this time. This as health officials prohibit the gathering of large crowds and continue to push social distancing.
I cannot personally see how there could be any consideration for ceremonies in an environment where the authorities are requesting that we maintain certain physical distance, as well as to ensure that we are not participating in crowded affairs. So, but we don't know. When the authorities determine exactly what, then we'll be guided.
Lloyd also reiterated that national examinations are not cancelled. This, as he said, the ministry has been inundated with questions surrounding national exams. He said the containment of the virus will determine when exams will take place.
Even though other jurisdictions like the Caribbean Examination Council or Cambridge and so on may have made their decisions. We in the Bahamas are considering the steps that we will have to take in order to ensure that, again, we are fair to all of our students, because for those exams, they do a variety of things. They, of course, assess where the students are after X number of years in school, but also they give a marker to employers as well as to a tertiary institution, University of the Bahamas and other institutions.
It will take about $50 million to feed people in need for the remainder of the year, according to the Bahamas Feeding Network Executive Director Philip Smith, who said with thousands unemployed and in need, there are more than 1,000 people coming for assistance weekly. Jillian Gray tells us more.
An estimated 100,000 people are in need of food, according to Executive Director of the Bahamas Feeding Network, Philip Smith, who said their aim is to put a dent in that number. A recent generous donation of $100,000 allowed them to pack 2,100 bags of grocery.
Donations are coming in, and so we imagine this will continue, hopefully, for at least 4 months. So let's pray, please. Pray with us that this continue, that every day we could hopefully feed 1,000 families, for the next 4 months. That's what I'm hoping.
Smith said while they are pleased with the continued support, it will take millions more in donations to meet the need brought on by the coronavirus pandemic. He added they need the help of both the government and the private sector.
We were to feed 100,000 persons that are experiencing hunger in the Bahamas. I came up with a calculation of about $50 million. So it would be $50 million to feed 100,000 families every week, because every week, like I said, one parcel of food, the cost of that, I calculated all of that. And we came up with $50-some million. So if the government could do, say, half of that, and we could get private industry, private citizens and so on to do the other half, I think we'll be okay.
The Bahamas Feeding Network partnered with civic and church organizations to distribute the grocery parcels. At their distribution operation on Friday, there was a line of persons waiting for help, with more coming every hour. Those persons had to complete applications and were called for pickup. Smith, who sits on the government's new security task force, says a similar process will be used by the task force.
There's persons who take advantage of the situation. They go here, there, and everywhere in 1 week. They get 6, 7, 8 parcels. So this process hopefully will help us to prevent overlapping. So we will put that into a general program that's going to be operated by the Bahamas Food Security, and we will then be able to prevent overlapping, hopefully.
Reporting for Our News Weekend, I'm Jillian Gray.
All right, thanks a lot, Jillian. Well, still ahead tonight, a nonprofit slams the arrest of the homeless. Plus, a local company looking to move true. That's coming out when Our News, the Weekend Edition, returns. Next tonight, following the arrest and arraignment of homeless people who have been charged with violating curfew, CEO of the National Lead Institute, Troy Clark, says the homeless need to be protected, not prosecuted. Jasmine Brown reports.
Persons who are homeless and you know they are homeless, I don't think that they should have been brought before the court, if any were brought before the court, because there's a better way to deal with that.
That's how CEO of the National Lead Institute, Troy Clark, described how he felt about the fact that some homeless people are being arrested and charged with violating the COVID-19 emergency orders. The curfew was imposed by the Prime Minister in an attempt to contain the spread of COVID-19 in the Bahamas. Individuals who violate curfew face up to 18 months in prison or up to a $10,000 fine.
The whole emergency order should have taken into consideration. And I do think you do have the agencies who would deal with, like social services, should have dealt with the homeless people.
Clark is not the only one to speak out on the matter. Progressive Liberal Party leader Philip Brave Davis has said he is disappointed homeless people have been convicted of violating the COVID-19 curfew. President of Great Commission Ministries Bishop Walter Hanschel has also condemned arrests, calling them wrong and totally unjust. Hanschel has also said the organization was actively trying to find a facility to host the homeless during the emergency curfew period. Meanwhile, Clark says the virus has also shed light on other issues like substance abuse.
See, there's a serious, COVID-19, there's the economic, there's the social, there's the emotional, behavioral, there's a mental impact. And it's having a tremendous impact on our people. And I think that we need to strike a balance.
Reporting for our news, I'm Jasmine Brown.
When our news comes back from the break, showman chefs helping to feed the hungry. And later we take a look at the most memorable quotes of the week, so stay tuned. Welcome back to our news, the weekend edition. Despite the economic downturn brought on by the COVID-19 pandemic, some businesses have actually seen a drastic increase in customers. One of them is a recently started delivery service by two young men called Mutru. The business partners with major retailers to bring purchases directly to customers, whether it be a pharmacy or hardware store like CBS Bahamas.
It's affected our business in a good way, definitely because, it highlighted the need for services like this, as well as it made a lot of retailers start to actually think about e-commerce and being able to offer delivery at home to the customers.
Founders Richie Goodman and Granville Colley started the business last year after realizing that many people simply don't have the time to pick up things for themselves. Since then, Mutru has been on the move, promoting its website, mutru242.com.
Currently working with one of the largest hardware retailers in CBS Bahamas, and we're currently in talks with a few more retailers to bring them on board. But even for companies without an e-commerce platform, we do also offer consulting and basically just helping them to bridge the gap between e-commerce and actually having their products delivered to the customer.
Nice. Anything else that we should know about Mutru 242?
Well, we're open to all retailers. It doesn't have to be any particular niche, even though we're in the hardware space. Pharmacies can take advantage of it, grocery stores, pretty much anybody.
An elite group of master chefs have teamed up to offer a new way to help feed the less fortunate. Showman Bistro turning Hump Day Wednesdays into a day where families can come in and get 5 full packages of items to make a full meal.
So we're partnering with Hands for Hunger, right? We're appealing to our corporate partners to sign up with us. They can sponsor a family, as it were. And so if you have a loved one or a friend, somebody that may be in need, certainly you can use us as an alternative.
Donors or those seeking assistance can sign up on their website, showmanebistro.com, or on their Facebook page. As for those who are interested in preparing the 5-star meals for themselves but don't know how to, Morrison says the packages can also be purchased.
5 proteins, 7 starches, you have all of the herbs, spices, all of the accoutrements, no matter what it is that comes for a meal, is in that box. So if you need, let's say you're doing macaroni and cheese, the cream is going to be in there. So all of the essentials will be included in the box for one low price. And we wanted to keep the price point as low as we possibly could, but also, like I said as well, to give persons an alternative as opposed to going and standing in a long line. And of course, what we also included and thought about was that it would be great for persons to have menus that they could follow. So if you're a first-time person in the kitchen, we are providing menus that are all built out for you.
We count down the most memorable quotes of the week. That's coming up when our news, the Weekend Edition, returns. Finally tonight, it's that time when we take a look back at the most memorable moments of the weekend news in our Quote of the Week segment. In at number 3 is Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis, who announced on Monday the extension of the emergency orders until the end of May and a crackdown on quarantine breakers.
The orders are being amended, Mr. Speaker, that those who break quarantine will be fined up to $20,000 or spend 5 years imprisonment or both. Mr. Speaker, you break quarantine, we lock you up.
Then there's this moment when opposition leader Philip Davis was removed from the House of Assembly on a day that marked the 55th anniversary of Black Tuesday. It takes the number 2 spot.
Honorable member, pursuant to Rule 88.3, you are to withdraw from this parliament for disrespecting the chair and creating a disturbance. You are to, officer, have this member removed.
But it was the admission by Health Minister Dr. Dwayne Sands that he gave permission to 2 Americans to disembark a flight that was used to drop off 2,500 double swab diagnostic test kits. That takes the top spot for Quote of the Week.
The plane was here, and we had to make an urgent decision. The plane was here to make a much-needed donation. I made the decision to allow the couple to disembark. The pair was not displaying symptoms of COVID-19 upon their arrival, and they were evaluated by a nurse of the airport's public health surveillance unit.
Well, that does it for our Quote of the Week and other stories making news this evening, but stay tuned, our weather forecast is up next. And that's our news, the weekend edition for this Sunday. I'm Andrew Knowles. For all of us here at Our News, thanks for watching. And remember to be safe and look out for each other. Have a good night.